If you've been hiding things from me all this time, then I can wait just as long." I never said those words out loud. I kept them locked deep inside, repeating them only in the quietest corner of my mind. But from the moment that thought formed, my life was never the same again. 17 years of marriage, 2 kids, a house with both our names on the deed, and a whole other life I never knew existed. My wife had been deceiving me for years, and on the day I found out, I made a decision that would take everything I had. I decided to wait. My name is Mark. I grew up in a small town just outside Columbus, Ohio. The kind of place where everyone knows your neighbor's business, where Friday nights mean high school football games, and Sunday mornings mean church parking lots filled with familiar faces. I was a quiet kid. Steady. The type who didn't make waves. I met Linda when I was 32 years old. She walked into a mutual friend's backyard barbecue on a warm July evening, and I still remember the way. The whole gathering seemed to shift slightly in her direction. She had that kind of presence. Loud laughter. Easy confidence. She filled every room she entered. For someone like me, who tended to blend into the walls, she was nothing short of dazzling. We dated for 3 years before we got married. The wedding was modest, a small ceremony at a local venue, maybe 80 guests, nothing extravagant. But I remember standing at the end of that aisle and thinking that the world had finally decided to be generous with me. The early years of our marriage were good, genuinely good. I worked as a project manager for a mid-sized construction company. Linda was an account manager at a regional insurance firm. We bought a house in the suburbs. Nothing fancy, but ours. We had 2 children, a boy and then a girl, born 3 years apart. We paid the mortgage every month. We went to school plays and soccer games. On weekends, we fired up the grill in the backyard and ate outside, while the kids ran through the sprinklers. From the outside, it looked like exactly the life 2 ordinary people were supposed to want. But somewhere around our 10th anniversary, things began to shift. Linda started working late. At first, once or twice a week. Then it became almost routine. I told myself it was just a busy season at work. Companies go through those phases. I understood that. I was patient. But then came the phone. She began carrying it everywhere, face down on the counter, tucked under her pillow at night. When I walked into a room, she would tilt the screen away just slightly. Just enough. I noticed, but I didn't say anything. I told myself that noticing wasn't the same as suspecting. And suspecting wasn't something I was ready to do. Looking back, I think I was afraid of what the answer might be. It started on the most ordinary of days. A Saturday in April. Linda had gone out to meet a friend for lunch. The kids were grown and away at college by then, and the house was quiet in that particular way. It gets when you realize the noise you used to wish would stop has stopped for good. I was sitting at the kitchen table doing our annual tax prep, sorting receipts, reviewing statements, organizing everything into folders before sending it all to our accountant. Routine. Tedious. Completely unremarkable. Then I reached into the bottom drawer of Linda's filing cabinet, looking for an old insurance document, and I pulled out an envelope I had never seen before. It was addressed to Linda. The return address was a bank I didn't recognize. I almost put it back. Something made me open it instead. Inside was a bank statement. The account balance was $312,000. I read the number 3 times, slowly. Then I set the paper down on the table and stared at the wall for a long moment. Our joint checking account had maybe $40,000 in it at any given time, Linda had always told. She kept a personal spending account for day-to-day expenses. I had never questioned it, never asked to see it. I picked up the statement again and began reading the transaction history, line by line. Most of it was regular transfers, money moving in, money sitting still. But then one line stopped me cold. Rolex Boutique, Columbus. $14,800. I had never received a Rolex. Our son was 19. Our daughter was 16 at the time of that purchase. I sat there in the quiet kitchen. Sunlight coming through the window at a low afternoon angle, the refrigerator humming its low, steady note. And I thought about who, in our life, might have received a $14,000 watch from my wife. It didn't take long to arrive at an answer. I sat at that table for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I didn't call Linda. I just sat there while the afternoon light moved across the floor, and I felt something inside me go very, very quiet. That silence was not emptiness. It was something hardening into shape. Linda came home that evening around 6. She smelled like perfume and wine, and she was in a good mood. I had dinner on the stove. I handed her a glass of water and asked how her lunch was. She said it was lovely. I smiled and said I was glad. We ate together at the kitchen table. She talked about her friend's new apartment. I listened. I passed the bread. I poured more water. When dinner was done, I washed the dishes, while she watched television in the other room, and I stood at the sink with my hands in the warm water, and I thought very carefully about what I was going to do. I did not sleep that night. I lay on my side of the bed and listened to Linda breathe beside me, and I stared at the ceiling for hours. By the time gray morning light began showing around the curtains, I had made my decision. I was not going to confront her. Not yet. Monday morning, before Linda was awake, I was at my desk searching for names. Divorce attorneys in Columbus, specializing in asset concealment, highly rated. I made 3 calls that week and settled on one name, Carol Hansen. She was in her mid-50s, calm and precise, with an office full of clean, organized files, and a way of speaking that made you feel like you were already 3 steps ahead of whatever was coming. I sat across from her desk and placed the bank statement in front of her without saying a word. She studied it for a moment. Then she looked up.
We could file tomorrow if you wanted to, but if you want to do this right, we should take our time.
I asked her how much time. She said,
As much as it takes.
That was the beginning. Over the following weeks, Carol connected me with a private investigator named Jim. He was a former police detective, quiet and methodical, the kind of man who blended into any background without effort. Within 2 weeks, he had established a clear pattern. Linda and a man named Derek were meeting regularly, Tuesday evenings, occasional weekend afternoons when I was traveling for work, sometimes at a restaurant on the north side of the city, sometimes at a hotel near the airport. Derek. I knew that name. He was a colleague of Linda's. I had shaken his hand at a company Christmas party 4 or 5 years earlier, a tall man with an easy smile. Linda had mentioned him occasionally over the years, always casually, always in the context of work. The photographs came first, then the record. Credit card statements cross-referenced with hotel check-ins. A financial forensics specialist began tracing the money. The secret account was only the beginning. Linda had been quietly diverting portions of her income, and occasionally portions of ours, into accounts I had no knowledge of. The Rolex was one of several significant purchases made for Derek's benefit. Dinners, flights, weekend trips to places she had told me were work conferences. I filed every document Carol sent me. I kept a locked folder on a laptop Linda didn't know I had, stored at my office. And every morning, I made coffee. Every weekend, I mowed the lawn. Every anniversary, I bought flowers. 4 years passed. Our children graduated and began their adult lives. Linda and I attended the ceremonies together, stood side by side in photographs, smiled at the other parents. Jim's files grew thicker. Carol's case grew stronger. And then one Thursday evening in October, I was sitting on the couch, watching the evening news, when Linda came in from the kitchen and sat down across from me. She had a look on her face I hadn't seen before, something between resolve and relief. She folded her hands in her lap and said, in a voice that was almost gentle.
Mark, I think it's time we had an honest conversation.
I set the remote down on the cushion beside me. 4 years of preparation. Every document, every photograph, every quiet morning of pretending. All of it balanced on this single moment. I looked at my wife and waited. The story continues in part 2. If you'd like to stay with us for the rest of Mark's journey, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Thank you for listening.